You're listening to Morning Motivation with Matthew. Morning Motivation is a podcast that helps you focus on setting your week in motion. Each episode, we'll dive into topics focused on being and remaining motivated. Regardless of what stage you are in life, we need men who are now more committed than ever and dedicated to not giving up, not just for those around you, but for yourself. We want you to live a life fulfilled and not allowing 10 or 15 years to go by wishing you've achieved that goal you had. Look, I'm not saying I get it right all the time, but what I can tell you is that I'm fighting to keep it together. I decided to start this journey into podcasting based on life lessons and gleaning from mentors who've helped me every step of the way. Remaining motivated is more than just saying you're motivated. It's a choice followed by an action. A choice to get out of bed every morning, not knowing what the day will hold. A choice to continue holding down the family and supporting everyone else mentally, emotionally, financially, and physically. Remaining motivated is knowing that regardless of your current situation, you are dedicated to achieving success and inspired by those around you who are making it happen. I'll be sharing my own stories and life experiences. Along the way, I'll have guests who can share insight and resources geared to helping us remain motivated together. I'm sure not all will agree, and I'm sure I'm bound to have some hiccups along the way. What I can promise is we will grow together while remaining motivated, all while keeping it together. Good morning, people, and welcome to Morning Motivations with Matthew. Let me start off by saying, wake up, get the crust out your eyes, make sure you brush your teeth, get dressed, feel great, have your cup of coffee, tea, whatever it is that you use or whatever it is that you drink in the morning. I hope all with the exception of alcohol, to go ahead and jumpstart and get your day up and going. Let's get into it on this morning. First, let me just start off by just simply thanking you for listening. Thank you for following. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for supporting. Um, I am just elated to be able to be on this journey and to have you with me on this journey, doing life together and really just making an impact. So I'm so elated and I'm so grateful that you've decided to join me on today. Today is all about introduction to Morning Motivations with Matthew. And so I'm going to spend some time talking just a little bit about myself and also spend some time just highlighting and talking a little bit about my why. Why is it that I've decided to embark on podcasting? What kind of led me here? And really just getting to the meat of, or at least a little bit of the depth of what it is that I'm hoping to cause, or what it is that I'm desiring to actually cause on this journey. This is something completely new to me, right? So prior to joining or jumping in on this journey in podcasting, I used to blog, um, tried to jump into a little bit of YouTubing, but definitely was really big into blogging. I had a blog called Mr. Daddy Duties when I was a stay-at-home dad, and we'll get into that in another episode. But had an opportunity to kind of get my feet wet a little bit in blogs, which was absolutely phenomenal. A little Mr. Daddy Duties, so simply about me being a stay-at-home dad at the time after we had my wife and I had my now 7-year-old. And so we'll definitely get into that in the next episode where I'll have an opportunity to talk a little bit about that experience and what got me to this point and so forth. But more than anything, I really just want to make sure that I'm able to focus on laying the foundation for you all, to help you understand why. What is it that I'm doing? What is it that I'm hoping to cause? And why is it that you are here today following me? And the first thing that I want to say before I really begin to address and dig into my why is I want to share with you all that this podcast is less about me and most certainly more about we. Um, I don't want this to simply be focused on me. This is a place where us as people, us as men, us as black men, white men, brown men, whomever you are, can come here and you can have a resource. You can have support. You can feel safe. You can be vulnerable. I think more often than not, we're taught, right, that men ought not cry, and men ought not be vulnerable, whatever the case may be. That's not this space. I will be the first to share that I'm a bit of a crybaby, and that's okay. I will be the first to share that I don't I don't wear my emotions on my sleeve, but I- I'm I'm not going to shy away from being who I am. And so this space here is a place where you have an opportunity to simply be your authentic self. And so we'll be focusing on men and focusing on overcoming fear, focusing on dealing with procrastination versus productivity, focus on dealing with mental health, focus on how is it that we support our wives, how is it that we can be better husbands and better fathers. We'll be focusing on all of that. And so I'm so elated and I'm so grateful that you've decided to join me on this journey. Um, and I also want to just really highlight that, in me transitioning into podcasting, uh, my desire and my hope and my motivation and why I'm here today is simply to build a community where we have an opportunity to make an impact. To make a change, one way or the other. So again, I'm just so elated and I'm so grateful that you decided to join me. And again, I'll get into a little bit more, but let me introduce you into who I actually am. So Matthew, again, your host of Morning Motivations with Matthew. I am married to a fine, wonderful, fantastic wife. We've been married for 12 years, together 13. She is absolutely the light of my life. And I absolutely love her with all my being. She has given me the gift of two wonderful boys whom I love dearly. Um, my wife is a therapist, so man, I'll just give you a little short story here into my introduction. When my wife and I first got married, uh, I was 20. I was a few months away from my 21st birthday, and my wife was 25. And I remember, especially with her being a therapist, attempting to go to bed angry one night. And when I say like I was heated, we had a heated argument, I was heated and I couldn't go to sleep. And what's so funny about it, I literally can like visualize it right now. I'm laying in bed with my back turned, and I'm like, I ain't got nothing to say to her. And I could feel her piercing eyes just staring me down because I had this macho mentality that, I'm grown. You can't tell me what to do. Right. But I wasn't at a full place of maturity to where I was able to really receive from my wife at that time. um, Lo and behold, the Holy Ghost just kind of shook me, and He would not let me go to sleep at all. And so, at about 2 o'clock in the morning, because I couldn't sleep, and she wasn't gonna let me sleep because her soul was looking through her eye. She was looking through my soul. We had to talk. And so, that's just a little introduction into my wife and who she is. You go talk to her. She don't care how it make you feel. As a therapist, she wants to make sure that we can settle the playing fields. We can make sure that we don't have to worry about going to bed angry. So I've never gone to bed angry because of that. And again, but let's just, that's just a little tidbit into my wife, but she's a phenomenal woman, just a really great friend. We were friends before we were anything else. And so I'm just so grateful for her and my two sons, Matthew and Levi, M2, Matthew the second, and Levi, whom I absolutely love. Matthew is 7. He's extremely smart, very creative and full of energy. And my Levi, who is 3, we call him the boss baby, just because he assumes that he is the man of the house and he can do him as he please. And he's just a ball of energy. Extremely sweet when he wants to be, but I have some phenomenal kids. I really do thank them And we'll get into that a little bit more, where I'll kind of have an opportunity to kind of introduce my wife to you all and so forth. Outside of that, I am in the financial industry, have been for about the last 6 years. I am, which I absolutely love. I've been in leadership and had an opportunity to have a hand in developing and impacting so many people's lives, which I absolutely love. I love development. I love having an opportunity to really be able to inspire and motivate people, especially in corporate America. Especially as an African American man, representation matters. Representation matters. I'm a leave it there. If you don't have anyone who you can aspire to be, right? It's very difficult for you to feel as if you honestly really have a safe space and you have a space where you feel like you can grow. And so, luckily enough for me, I had phenomenal mentors, phenomenal advocates, right? It's one thing to have a mentor, right, who can help navigate you throughout your career, but it's definitely another thing when you have an advocate, someone who is really dedicated and committed to making sure that people know who you are. And I'm so grateful that I've actually had that in the last 6 years that I've actually been in the financial industry. And so I'm so grateful for that. Outside of that, I'm a college student. Currently getting ready to start working on my master's degree. Get this, in counseling psychology, right? So here I am talking to you all and getting ready to start a master's degree, which I'm absolutely elated about. I have a bachelor's in business, and so I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be able to transition and to do something to where, one, I'm licensed to do it, two, and I have a greater scope of what I can actually do, and counseling. So I'm really excited about the opportunity to be able to do that. But that's just a little bit about me. I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a son, I'm an uncle, I'm a friend, I'm a brother. I'm all of those things. And I'm just so grateful for the people, the community that I have, who really love me, who are really serious about looking after me, who are really serious about supporting me, and launching Monday Motivations with Matthew. I've had phenomenal support, and I'm just so grateful for the people who are here with me, who are rocking with me, who love me, who support me, and who are really committed to making sure that they're supporting me, and I'm so grateful for it. All right, so let's talk about my why. Um, I mentioned to you all earlier that representation matters. It really does. And I absolutely love reading and love digging a little bit more into resources that really kind of speak to what's really happening per se. That kind of speaks to the lack thereof. Um, and so I did some digging, wanted to be able to kind of look into understanding, before I kind of a little bit get into my specific why, but really wanted to kind of dive into some resources. And I'll share with you that in creating a podcast, the one thing that I've learned, especially in reading an article that came out in Inc., where it highlights the 5 reasons you should start a podcast and the popularity and the growth, and whether or not you should or shouldn't actually jump on board. A few of the points that actually stuck out to me is the opportunity for it to allow you to produce long form content, right? And it referenced how we're usually so bombarded with short form content, tweets, blog, articles, videos, etc., right? But in having an opportunity to create a podcast, it allows you to be able to not be so surface level. We know in looking at social media that more often than not, or I shouldn't even say more often than not, but sometimes it's very cliche, it's very surface level, right? You don't really have an opportunity to understand what's really happening, right? But in podcasting, you have an opportunity to dig a lot deeper, right, into what is it that you're actually sharing. And so I'm grateful to be able to have a community, because that's what this is. It's a community of people to where I can share not only my life experiences, but the individuals that I'll have come on to the podcast, their experiences as well as resources, right? I don't want to just spend a bunch of time talking about me and I'm not giving you something tangible that you can actually take back and apply it, right? My goal and my objective, no different than if I was coaching or mentoring, my employees, is it's important for me to be able to give you something tangible so that way you can begin to focus on setting goals, and or you can begin to have an opportunity to where you can do some self-reflection, and it allows you to be able to dig in a little bit deeper into who you are, right, and or who it is that you actually desire to be. um, Outside of that, it allows you to be able to build a personal connection with your audience, and that's another thing that really stuck out to me. For me, this is something that I don't take lightly. um, my intent, or I should say one of my intents into going into podcasts, was to be able to share or be a voice, just like I've actually had an opportunity to be in my career field, and to be able to replicate and or apply that to a much greater audience of people, right? So being able to share my own experiences in corporate America, to be able to share why it's important not to just have a mentor, but it's as equally important to have someone who advocates for you. Why it's important to make sure, especially for someone who's mentoring people, a black man who's mentoring other individuals, whether they be black or anything else, but to be able to help them understand how it is that you build business acumen, and how it is that you go after what it is that you're actually wanting, how it is that you set yourself in a place or set yourself apart, right? So then that way, people really understand what it is that you have to bring to the table. And so I wanted to be able to build a community, a resource for people who are dealing with things, who don't feel safe. We are living in a day and age where people are afraid to be their authentic selves solely based on the experiences that they've had with other people. And I'll share with you all that I refuse. I refuse. I've lived a life where I've been afraid to do solely based on what other people have actually had to say about what it is that I was actually doing. And I'll share a little bit more about that when I talk about fear in a later podcast, and just sharing some of my own experiences of how, over the last 5+ years, I've not done some things solely based on how it is that I've actually might have been received. But me transitioning into 2022, me thinking about what is the type of legacy that I want to leave for my children, what is the impact that I'm wanting to make on the world, but more importantly, um, what is the thing that I'm wanting to do? Let me throw this nugget in there that's going to make God proud. The one thing that I failed to mention is that I am God fearing, saved, sanctified, and filled with the Holy Ghost, with the speaking of tongues. And so it's important for me, like I said before, to be able to be my authentic self. I dare not and refuse to not acknowledge why I'm actually here. And it is solely not on my own accord. And you may not necessarily agree with that. That is simply okay. It is okay. I am telling you that it's okay. But my intent and my goal is to be my authentic self. And I can't be my authentic self if I don't have the one who is with me, the one who allows me the opportunity to live, breathe, and do everything else that I desire to do, and not give him honor, not give him glory, not acknowledge him. I am that I am because of the Most High God. And so a part of me, and being my authentic self, is knowing and understanding that I have a purpose. My intent and my purpose is not literally just to be here, to make a bunch of money, to retire, to live a lavish lifestyle, to live comfortably, to be stable. My intent and a part of my purpose is to be able to bring people from where they currently are up to where it is that he wants them to be, right? And so a part of that podcast, and the reason why it's called Morning Motivations with Matthew, because it says, early in the morning shall I seek thee. My intended, I'm not having you to seek me. I'm just the light. I'm literally just the light. So you joining and you listening to Morning Motivations with Matthew has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with the mere fact that you've gravitated here. And so that's just a part of my job, a part of my role per se, a part of my purpose, is to be able to help, motivate, inspire. The other thing that I mentioned to you all earlier is that representation matters. um, I knew that when I transitioned from being a stay-at-home dad, that's where Mr. Daddy Duties came from, and I'll talk about that in a later episode. But I knew in transitioning from being a stay-at-home dad into the workforce, first and foremost, I had no intentions on actually remaining in corporate America, remaining in a financial institution because I had never worked in it, and so I didn't necessarily really believe that I could do the job or that I really wanted to remain there. I thought that I would go and work for the state and do something to that extent, but God had other plans. So I'm so happy that He did, given the mere fact that I've been working virtually for the last 3 years. And so when the pandemic hit, I didn't have to shift. Right, I was already home. It wasn't easy. It wasn't difficult for me to make that transition. It was difficult because everybody was in the house, and I was used to a little bit of quiet. But outside of that, I didn't have to make that transition. But representation matters, and there is there's not enough there's a lot of African Americans who are podcasting per se, right? There are a lot of Black people who are podcasting, who are podcasters, who are putting their content out. There are definitely also a lot of men, but there is definitely a lack of representation. And for me, being a Christian man, um, I want to be able to have a space or place where I can provide some authenticity, and I can provide some biblical background to it, and I can bring on, my friends and associates and people that I know, who can really share resources and content and support, and guidance for my listeners. Outside of that, again, just kind of laying the foundation. This is a place where you can be vulnerable. This is it's a place where you can be vulnerable. It's a safe space, right? I'm gonna be as real and authentic as I possibly can be, and that's just who I am. Outside of that, simply as a father, I have an obligation, right, as a father, to ensure that regardless of what I'm going through, I remain motivated. I have two young African American sons who are looking to me day in and day out. And right now, I don't feel like they need me much, just because they're mama's boys. But it's important for me, one, to be able to seek resources and guidance so that I can remain healthy mentally, spiritually, emotionally, right? Because I can't, even in thinking about them and my obligation towards them, I can't forget about me. And I think more often than not, as men, we forget about ourselves. We lay ourselves down by the wayside and we focus on family and what it is that we need to do for them. And that is what we ought to do. However, we neglect and forget that we also have an obligation to ourselves, right? To ensure that we are the healthiest that we can be, especially mentally. And so that's one of the reasons that I started Morning Motivations with Matthew. I grew up in a home where my father was not present. I knew my father, had a relationship with him. Um, I love him, no fault of his own. I'm not harboring any hurt, any bad feelings, nothing to that extent. I love him dearly, but I grew up in a home where my father was not present, and so that had a grave impact on me. But thank God that I had men in my life who did all that they possibly could do to provide me as much support as possible. But outside of that, thank God for giving me the ability or the autonomy, um, to go out and glean from other men who could help me, even if they didn't necessarily know that they were helping me. They were helping me. I've always watched from afar. I had a cousin the other day who I was just talking to, and I was sharing with him some things, and he was sharing me with some things, and he was giving me some praises and so forth, just about where I am in life. And I made mention to him that, I was how appreciative I was of him, and how, in the few years that we've known each other, have had an opportunity to be able to glean from him, and learn some stuff. And so that's just a part of who I am. I know that everything that I need to know, I'm not going to learn it from one person. And that's even for me being a father. I know that everything that my sons need, they're not going to get it just from me. I know that there are going to be people who they're going to come across, who are going to need, right? They're going to need what that person actually has to offer them, or what that person has to give them. And for me, I have no ill will or no bad feelings towards that, because I know that I'm not the only resource for them. I'm not the only person that's going to be able to kind of help set the bar and be able to help them get to where they're actually going in life. I'm going to be the first person who has that impact, and I'm going to make sure that I do it the right way, so that way whenever they go out to search for those relationships, they'll be healthy relationships, and they'll have enough confidence in themselves to know that if that person doesn't mean them any good, that they can be able to shift, and they can shift easily. But outside of that, those are some of the reasons that I've decided to launch Morning Motivations with Matthew. It's a place of accountability for me as well, because it's going to help me understand and know that it's not just solely about me. And I need a group of, and I have a phenomenal group of brothers, might I add, but I need a group of men who have an opportunity to hold me accountable while I hold them accountable. And so that's this place. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you for joining in on Morning Motivations with Matthew. I want to thank you for following and sharing. Do me a favor. If you're following on Spotify, do me a favor and make sure that you actually share the podcast, share this episode, tell more people to come and listen. Invite your husbands, your brothers, your friends, your cousins. Go to Apple Podcasts, go to the Apple library, Morning Motivations with Matthew. Let me just share this. I am far from perfect. And so I know along this journey, there are going to be some hiccups, but I'm committed. I'm committed and I'm dedicated to making sure that you all get what you need to receive out of Morning Motivations with Matthew, and that I do it with authenticity, that I do it integrally, and that we can literally walk along this journey together, remaining motivated and keeping our stuff together. So join on Spotify, join on Apple Podcast. Make sure that you follow us on Facebook. And again, thank you so much for listening and joining in on Morning Motivations with Matthew. Have a good morning and a great day.